In the real world, we never get to see our own character sheets. What if we could use personality tests to reveal parts of them? How do we benefit from knowing what's on our character sheets? And which tests are actually useful? Hi, I'm Bree Sheldon, and welcome to Leading with Class. Personality tests have been a tool for assessing leadership basically forever. They've had varying levels of effectiveness and accuracy. Some tests show gender bias, like how the Keirsey temperament sorter has different results based on which gender you choose at the start of the test. They're also very centric to the United States, which presents a bias against immigrant and international leaders. This is similar to intelligence tests, which can have a bias for race, gender, and nationality. Early IQ tests were heavily biased against non-English speakers and people of color. I recommend against using IQ tests for any form of assessments. For personality tests, there are a few options. The Myers-Briggs Type Indicator is a popular personality test loosely based on the psychology of Carl Jung. The test is supposed to measure 4 personality categories, each of which is described by a pair of opposed preferences. Those preferences are extroversion or introversion, sensing or intuition, thinking or feeling, and judging or perceiving. Modern psychology doesn't view these preferences in opposition, and repeat testing can be inconsistent. Myers-Briggs can be useful for self-reflection, but it doesn't tell us much reliable about our character sheets. The Big Five is a test that looks at dimensions of a leader's personality that are supposed to enable effective leadership. The dimensions are extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, neuroticism, and openness to experience. One flaw with the test is that the Big Five has a gender bias. It also often trends negative in the results, focusing on flaws rather than highlighting strengths. That means you don't have guidance for leading with what you've learned, just a fix-it list for your personality. If you were a character in the game Fate, this would be like finding out your trouble aspect, but none of the others.
Characters in Fate have aspects, which are narrative elements important to the character, and a pool of fate points tied to those aspects. Aspects can help or hinder depending on the situation. If your aspect could help with your action, you can spend a fate point to invoke that aspect and either gain a +2 bonus or reroll your dice. If you have more than one aspect that could help, you can spend multiple fate points to invoke multiple aspects, but you can't invoke the same aspect more than once. When an aspect could hinder you, the GM can offer you a new fate point to compel that aspect and complicate the scene, similar to the cost you can accept to succeed with a low roll.
The Clifton Strengths test determines which strengths a person has, out of a pool of 34. The strengths are descriptive and discuss your behaviors and how they can influence your work and relationships. I appreciate the Clifton Strengths test because the focus on strengths, combined with the leadership guide that comes with your test results, helps you use your strengths effectively and focus your efforts. When I took the test, my results were both revealing and confirming of aspects of my behaviors. Using the Clifton Strengths results feels like revealing aspects on my Fate character sheet. My Fate character sheet is something like this. My strengths: communication, individualization, restorative, activator, and ideation can all be translated into aspects that reveal my leadership behaviors and my personality. Even my trouble can often be a strength, and that says a lot about my leadership. The DISC profile assesses your dominance, influence, steadiness, and conscientiousness. This is one of the tests I prefer because, while it is a paid test, the results come along with a lot of guidance on using your skills. In DISC, dominance is about results and confidence. Influence is about relationships and changing minds. People with high steadiness are reliable and cooperative. Conscientiousness is about the particulars: quality, accuracy, and competency. Instead of telling you about the aspects on your character sheet, DISC reveals your approaches, like in Fate Accelerated. Dominant, influential, steady, and conscientious describe the way that you deal with challenges you face.
Where most games have skills that define what you do, Fate Accelerated Edition presents a different option. Every character in Fate Accelerated has the same 6 approaches: careful, clever, flashy, forceful, quick, and sneaky. Depending on how you describe it, the same action could be performed with several different approaches. You could bypass some guards by slipping past them sneakily, or by blustering flashily or cleverly and moving on in the confusion. Approaches allow for groups of characters that should all be able to do the same things to show off their individual strengths through description and tactics.
These DISC approaches are rated based on the intensity of your behaviors. You might be better able to act steadily in a crisis, but less able to dominantly control a debate. Based on my DISC results, I'd rate my approaches like this: dominant at +3, conscientious at +2, steady at +1, and influential at 0. Knowing how my approaches are rated helps me play to my strengths. Revealing your character sheet is a good way to see where you are as a leader and where you want to go. What are your strengths? What action do you need to take to be a better leader? How do your aspects and approaches help you cover all your bases? Aspects and approaches aren't the only things on your character sheet. There's still some blank spaces. Some people use leadership styles to help fill in the blanks. Situational leadership, democratic leadership, and transformational leadership are some positive leadership styles. We've talked about situational and democratic leadership in previous episodes. So what about transformational leadership? Transformational leadership is characterized by the ability to bring about change in followers and organizations. Transformational leaders aim to meet goals while creating change and growth. This is often contrasted with transactional leadership, which is about the give and take between leaders and followers. Transactional leaders are part of a process. They're less about making something new. These styles all collect behaviors and purposes in one place, but the question that I keep asking is, do we need to have a defined style? From my perspective, we are all individuals with our own identities as leaders. Styles are useful to explain behaviors and ideals, but they shouldn't restrain us or define us. Now that we've revealed what's on our character sheets, we need to make our own choices, and do so with our values and perceptions in mind. In the next episode, we'll discuss values and perception, including the role of stereotypes in leadership. I hope you'll join us in learning how what matters to us makes a difference to how we lead. Look in the description below or on our Patreon post for links to the sources of our definitions and examples, and for an exercise on your character sheet and personality and leadership. I hope you'll enjoy it and that you'll share your experience with us in the comments below. This episode was made possible by your support at patreon.com/leadingwithclass. Special thanks to Lauren Pruitt and Kimberly Lamb for sponsoring this episode. Help make future episodes by supporting Leading with Class on Patreon. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, your trouble can be a strength, just like any other aspect.